Probably. Hey everybody, welcome to Kitchen Chaos 4. We're doing gumbo today, and yeah, so I'm glad that, well, whoever's chosen to join us at this time has. Yeah, we'll go ahead and get started, and or we'll stall for time while people get here. I don't know, usually Heather's waving and some, like, saying something or not saying something, but
giving us
whatever.
signals.
Yes.
We've got 6 people already, so you can get going.
We'll get going. Yes, that's.
I'm still Sebastian. I'm back.
He's back.
How's it going?
All right. So the cheats for today, it's not too much, but we chopped some things. We've got 1 onion, 1 bell pepper, and like 4-ish, decent. I don't know, pretty decent sized ribs of celery that we diced up. I had some sausage we cut up, and I have some chicken too that we cut up. So the first thing that we're going to do, because we're trying to do this in the 30-minute deal, is we're going to get some roux started. So
That's me.
we're going to get
We're gonna scramble for tools.
we're going to use a ½ cup of oil. We can talk about roux in a bit, but we'll just get it rolling first. So, for the amount of stuff we're making, and we're not doing a huge portion. So a ½ cup of oil, and then 3/4 cups flour. Usually that's a decent ratio. It's like 1.5 times as much flour as oil is a good start. If you're like super on top of it, you can like start the thing and have the oil all hot, so that then you put the flour in. But it doesn't kill anybody if we just, kind of do it this way. So, yeah, so 3 flattish, scoops of that. Poof, poof, poof. Yeah, it's good to have a nice flat something to do the roux. So I think Sebastian is going to do the roux for us today. You're welcome. After he puts the top in the thing. So here, so you can just look, like I'm just incorporating it, right? So you kind of stir around until it's nice and, I'll lock the heat down a scooch.
You want to get an after show?
Oh yeah.
A lot, yeah. You don't have to be gentle with it. You can, you don't have to beat it up either, but just, you just want mixing. So roux is, it's just traditionally a mix of fat and flour, like the classical French roux is butter and flour, equal parts by weight. A lot of Louisiana cooking, they use oil, so we use just whatever, cheesy vegetable oil stuff we have. And then you cook it. So cooking it deepens the flavor of the flour. It cooks away the starchy taste. Actually, the water will do most of the cooking away the starchy taste. But it'll brown stuff and just make it taste kind of nice. If you were going to do a sauce that's like, milk in it to make a bechamel or something, then you would really just cook it until, just for a little bit, like you wouldn't darken it at all. You could then keep cooking it, and it'll, they call it a blonde roux, and then to a dark roux. So there's some roux that like is as light as, as that wood color, if you're doing something like just a really light kind of consommé. A lot of times, we kind of adapt it to what we're doing. So if we're going to make a gumbo or something that has game in it, and you kind of want that deep, rich flavor, so we take it really dark, like to the color of like chocolate. This
is straight up. So
yeah, the gumbo we're making today is chicken sausage gumbo. So it's a little, it can be a little bit lighter. We'll kind of see
it's gotten a little
how it goes.
Here.
Yeah, take a look at that. Yeah, there you go. So the biggest thing is to just keep stirring it, like, and to stir it sort of like, just have a little thing where you basically scrape every part of it, in some sort of little rotation, and then that way you're not leaving anything touching for that long.
It's starting to smell like roux.
Yeah, if you're doing this yourself, you don't want to leave it. I cook roux on high, and I just like do it, and and pay as much attention as I need to it. A lot of times you'll hear like low medium heat, and that's great the first couple 3 times you do it. apparently, if you get really good at roux, you just stop making it at all, and they just buy it in jars now. Like, you know, not to like rat out, you know, my
Like-
mom and Uncle Richie, but they both buy jars of Carrie's roux.
Proper
And it's
Cajun.
like, yeah, I mean, yes, they're
It's very New Orleans.
yes, they're hugely Cajun. You know, they grew up in Ville Platte, and you know, and our grandpa owned a little country store, and you know, I mean, he played Blu-ray every weekend or whatever. Like, you know, that was Cajun AF.
Whereas
So
we live in Seattle, so we take it.
So you
so
might
that's
have
okay to do. Go.
you might have already answered this, but someone asks about the heat level. Actually, Jay and
Yeah.
Jen are on, and they want to say
Real quick.
hi. And then Jay is asking about the heat level for making the roux.
Yeah. So the most important thing to do is not burn it. So like, you know, you can kick the heat pretty high, and then you just want to scrape it a good bit, you know, and just keep it moving around. It's okay to smell like popcorn. It's bad to smell like burnt popcorn. And you know, if you see little dark flecks in it, then you should probably dump it out and redo. There's
Yeah. Also, the texture will get thicker
Yeah.
if you make it more.
yeah, it'll start looking like a kind of you see the pieces that look a little bit like peanut butter, so you can scrape along like the sides with the flat
It's
of
kind,
that.
it's kind of hard to do it.
I
though.
get it. Yeah, that flat. There you go. Yeah, it's. I mean, it's.
Did you explain about the tool?
Yeah, well, show it up. Hold it real quick. Yeah. So this is just like a little flat, you know, one of those bamboo thingers. There's. My mom actually got me like a spoon that has a flat edge on the bottom, and it's all awesome. But I didn't want to like make it seem like you had to buy another thing to, you know, just to make gumbo. So. You know, this one's one that I hope if everybody just like, you know, you can replay and write some stuff down if you want to. Maybe we'll actually post the recipe this time. Like, you should be able to make this at the end of this, because this is not like, the whole point of this is like, you know, it might seem mysterious, but it's not super hard. So, yeah, so we put the oil, we heated it, we threw the flour in after, you know, just a minute.
About 2 seconds.
Alexa, turn off the alarm.
That's for a separate thing.
And so, yeah, so Sebastian's going to keep dutifully stirring, and
I'm gonna have
yeah,
to block
you're doing
the
a great
camera
job.
a little bit.
So yeah, so on heat, high heat is as good. High heat is fine. Just you know,
Don't do
but
that your
Your
first time.
first time, maybe do it at like a you know, like a little shy of medium or something, just to get the feel. There's like all kinds of, you know, tones that are like, oh, it takes 45 minutes, but I don't know. We usually do it in 10. So.
So
yeah. Oh right.
A
So
lot.
we got
yeah.
to get some comments in.
Yeah,
See-
just real quick though, much like sugar syrup, roux is like culinary napalm, right? Like it burns like crap and it sticks because it's got the oil and everything. So
that sucks.
So be careful with it.
Okay, so your mom is defending herself and saying she also makes roux, so
She
be
does
careful
also
there.
make roux. I
Yes.
did not mean to, you know, to yes, imply any otherwise. Yeah.
You really want to not splash.
Mom has been like the center of like the, you know, the sort of roux innovation that I've seen go on. Like they had a method to do it in the microwave for a while,
Yeah, can you
and
take a look at this?
I've never not burned it doing that way, so I don't do that anymore. But you know, but yeah, and Mom also taught me to make a roux, so of course Mom can make a roux, and I'm sure does. But you know,
Alex, I can't say this last name, Kiewerski. Forgive me, Alex. I hope I'm doing your name justice. Says awesome roux tips. This part is often voodoo when starting out.
come look.
Oh, all right. Let's see.
Yeah, yeah. So.
And there we go.
So if y'all can see that, it's starting to brown nicely, and it definitely smells, you know, it smells like it's doing. It doesn't smell too done at all, and this is still pretty light on a roux, so we're going to cook it a little more than this. But you'll see it starts to smoke and everything. And this might be the part where, you know, if you've been cranking it up until now, maybe this is the point to turn it a little bit lower. You know, that's all fine.
There's also a little smoke coming off of it, which is okay.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So one thing to know about roux is like as you cook it, you are decreasing its thickening power, right? Because you know all of that, you know, the caramelization that's happening to some of the carbohydrates and you know blah blah blah, like that reduces the amount of starch that is there that you know it's going to be able to use to thicken the liquid. So you know, I mean, it's most of the recipes are sort of written for a fairly dark roux. You know, if you cook it less, you'll have a much thicker gumbo, which, you know, that's.
Do we want to show off why you don't splash roux?
No.
Yeah. All right. Alexa, set a timer
Do you
for
need some help?
10
I need 5 minutes, just a
minutes.
second to ground.
Okay.
Roux will give
All right,
you second-degree burns at high heat, I've just discovered, so don't do that.
All right, so yeah. So if you look at it now, so you want to come take a peek real quick?
That's a good texture.
So this is starting to be kind of, you know, like a peanut buttery color. We'll let it go a little bit more. Yeah. This a lot of times it's kind of more like a, I don't know, maybe like a milk chocolate or some terrible kind of thing, you know, is about the color that I usually do like chicken sausage gumbo roux. So, I don't know, that took what? I don't know, maybe it was, it's been under 10 because it's 440 now. And
So Jen, we did take the smoke detector down on this one. We're starting to learn.
Good call.
Let's see.
Yeah.
We've got.
We'll have all time to chat in a minute too.
Okay. All right. You go.
No, that's fine. You go ahead.
Gawoon says watching this before dinner was a bad idea.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, I feel for you.
I know. This is terrible, y'all, because normally we could just invite everybody over afterwards and come eat gumbo. Or they'd all be here jeering, you know, like in the peanut gallery or some such.
So, just some folks who joined us. We have Dick Carroll and Jen Kramer. I mentioned Jay and Jen from a couple blocks away.
Hey guys.
Jessica's with us again. Bong Kim is watching. Steve Leninger. I don't know how to say your last name, Steve. Scott Thompson. Allison. Titus Nelson.
Oh, all right. Yes. Yeah. Relatives.
Christian Nice.
Cousins. Yeah. Christians from way back when, like even Christian brothers, like middle school and.
Christopher Rao.
Oh, hey.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's via me.
Alex Kaworski, if I'm saying his name right. Or her name.
I'm sure Sebastian would say hi to Raja on, you know, if you were on camera.
Christopher, tell Raja hi.
All right.
I'm busy.
So, all right. So now it's darkened a little bit more. See, we got a little.
A little bit
you know,
darker.
And so this is about, you know, this is getting towards good. Like, you know, there's not a perfect thing. You know, it's really just, all right, you know, sometimes they say an old penny too. So like that's, you know, it's a pretty old penny right there. So we'll call that good. So this was, if anyone missed it, it was one onion, medium-ish. It was one bell pepper and then some celery, four, you know, kind of large ribs of celery. So the nice thing about this is your heat. You know, this has got a ton of heat in it, and if you let it go too long, it will burn. But as soon as all this stuff hits, it's, you know, as long as you stir it, it's not burning anymore. So we're going to stir all this through. And this is the point where everybody in the block is like, who is making what? And oh my God, that's good. Because like the smell of this is just fantastic. So yeah, come take a look. We'll show you.
And this is called the...
Yeah, so this is quenching, right? You know, I mean, this is like, we have added our, oh yeah. So they call the peppers, onions, and celery thing the Holy Trinity, and you know that's the Trinity in Louisiana. Of the cuisine there. So, and it's usually I don't know. I've seen it where it's like equal volumes, and I've seen it where it's I don't know. I usually just lean on the onion a little bit more. And honestly, I often put fennel in gumbo because I think it's a good flavor in there, even though you know it's not used a ton in Louisiana. You know, it kind of wasn't, I don't think, brought over with all that other stuff. But
Okay, we got a question.
But it's good. Yeah.
Do you add more oil as it's darkening, or do you just let it clump up?
No, I just let it clump up. It's
there is that instinct to add oil to avoid it.
I've seen some recipes that use as much as equal parts. We use like 1.5 times, you know, by volume of flour versus oil. I've seen it where it's even, so then it doesn't clump up as much. Then you just end up with more fat in your gumbo. Boy, that'd be a shame. So you know, there's not a magical thing. It's you know, it doesn't have to be whatever way. It's just kind of whatever lets you handle it. So yeah.
And somebody said, you just set my timer. I think when you set the alarm on, set somebody else's.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, that is funny.
I turned on your device.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can talk about burn treatment because I'm getting good at it.
Wait, okay. Stop disturbing the audience. You gotta soldier on, dude. Gotcha. Yeah, that's.
I can't start with fire right now.
I'm sorry for that. All right, so
steam just went
so while that goes, that's gonna go for a little bit. just let it be. You're gonna want to cook this until things start to become translucent. And here, you can kind of see what it looks right now.
Yeah, I got it.
So, it's not, it kind of just looks like we dumped a bunch of stuff in the roux. So that's what we did.
The easiest to tell are translucent are onions, in my opinion.
Yeah. And they're so, yes. So, real quick, let me, pull this because I forgot.
Hi, audience.
So it sounds like a few of you have tried making your own roux before. I'm curious if there's anybody else who's either made their roux or if they've bought jarred roux and how that experience went.
I saw someone say that they messed up a couple roux. Yeah, we also messed up roux, even though we always make them. It's a little luck sometimes.
Yeah, well, like I said, I'm at 0% success for microwaving it on like 2 or 3 attempts, and I've made it in the pot a million times and burned it a couple
million times.
In restaurants, they actually will bake it. They'll like roast it in the oven, a big tray of like fat and flour together, and a lot of times we'll just do it in vast quantities and then use it up all week or whatever. So, there's different ways to do it in different proportions. But it's just nice to not have to start everything with all this shenanigans. So, that's what. So, right, I wanted to talk about So we'll talk a little bit about the ingredients. So in addition to the other things, we're using like a pound-ish of andouille sausage. And I gotta tell you, Trader Joe's smoked andouille is like awesome. I mean, it's in Louisiana they would love this. I guess maybe there is a Trader Joe's in New Orleans now. That it's chicken, which is good for all of us because we're getting old and we shouldn't have as much, whatever pork or what have you. But the flavor is awesome and it's great. You simmer it in for a while. This is it. You can, it looks nice and spicy and it's a nice warm, kind of level of spice.
So the one thing we do know about that sausage, though, for anyone that this is important to, is that they use pork casings. It's chicken sausage, but it does have pork casing. So if that's something that you don't eat, then it's not going to work for you. That was something Sandra and Sunny, actually, Chris's parents, called to our attention, that a lot of the chicken sausages actually still use pork casing. So just be aware.
So for chicken, you can use just about any chicken, it was like 10 or 15 years ago, you stopped being able to find the stewing hen in a little bag, this little shriveled up thing. And that would be great for this actually, because, at 2-3 years old or whatever, it's got like good flavor, it's not cool for like grilling, but it's outstanding in a stew, which is effectively what a gumbo is. But we're using these, just these boneless, skinless thighs from Costco because, I was going for a sponsorship from them or something by now. You could use like, bone-in, whatever, chicken pieces and stuff, and that's fine. You get a little bit more body and stuff from the bones, but we've got a ton going on already.
We don't need more body.
We're using some stock that we made out of like all the remains from the turducken that we made over at with Allison and it's not Allison Leakus though, right? Allison Titus.
No, it's Allison.
Oh, Allison Leakus too.
Oh, I'm sorry, I haven't seen Allison Leakus on today.
Gotcha.
No.
Yeah. We got some friends nearby that we actually like made a turducken. Their son Arden and I together kind of like did the whole thing. It was pretty crazy. Anyway, so yeah, I'm cutting it into like something that is not so much that you can't just put it in your mouth or whatever, in a spoon. If you had whole pieces or whatever, you can leave the whole pieces in there. You just have to contend with them or whatever as you eat. So these will go in once we get the thing back up to a simmer. In a little bit. So how are the vegetables doing, Mom?
They're good. They're not entirely translucent yet. All right, should I give them a stir?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay.
You don't have to worry about burning it much anymore. Because all that liquid in the vegetables.
But it's good to mix it up.
But it's good to
It's not like you're sauteing onions where if you have to stir a bunch while this happens, or a beurre blanc or anything.
Yeah.
So your mom says, that's what I do too, Chris. More flour than oil. That's one thing I don't measure, just dump.
Yes, that's very
Let's see. Jay says he's made it a few times, messed it up some. Jen says she's made it. Reminds her of making lemon curd. Just keep it moving. What else do we have? Oh, and Jay says he says he loves doing it, especially on a skillet in bacon fat, and he puts it in bean chili.
Ooh. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah, that brings good flavor. Alexa, stop the alarm.
So Peter Sodi.
That's Catherine.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my godmother.
Okay.
Well, I mean, not Peter. Catherine, you know, whatever.
So he says he missed the roux part, but enjoyed the discussion about flour to oil and the Trinity and fennel, and it's fun about gumbo. It's completely versatile. His Trinity is onion, garlic, and bell pepper.
I also, yeah.
He cuts the oil way back in making roux because we're just not used to that much oil in our food these days.
Fair enough.
So some amount of flexibility there.
Oh, one thing I've heard no agreement on is whether you use filet after.
Well, we haven't gotten to that yet.
But we should.
But yeah, you should talk about filet.
Me?
Yeah.
So, sure.
Oh, we're also making bread. Filet's an herb. It doesn't have much of a taste, but I, at least, and a lot of other people use it.
Hold on. Why don't you grab it from the spice rack and then I'll feature you.
That's quite the
All right,
vibe. There it is.
It's right there. I actually pulled, that was the other cheese. I pulled that to the front.
Yes, we should. So filet, it's a very just kind of like green.
Yeah, so show them the label.
We got this ground filet.
Ground filet gumbo.
That's
Gumbo
spelled
filet.
with that little E.
Yeah.
It's used to thicken gumbo when you eat it, which is what I mainly use it for because I like a thick gumbo. Because like gumbo is kind of the opposite of jambalaya, where you mainly have the stew and not the rice. So if you want it to be a little more together, I recommend filet. I also have a lot of friends who eat gumbo who vehemently hate filet for some reason. So I was curious to see what the sides were on that. There doesn't seem to be a middle ground.
Okay, so
ground sassafras.
I was just gonna. Sorry. You ruined it. I was just gonna ask everybody if anybody knew what filet was. If there's another common name for it, and it's sassafras. But anyway, that's all right. I'm sure we would have had enough people from Cajun country on here that wouldn't have been a hard one anyway.
I'm surprised Grandma didn't already have it typed, just ready to go.
Okay, so anyway, that thing, it's used. It actually has a little thickening property. So you can actually, a lot of people will go. You can thicken gumbo with roux. You can thicken gumbo with okra. You know, like there's a kind of gumbo that I make that I don't put any roux in it, and just like okra. It's like shrimp and okra, you know, are kind of the main two things, and a nice kind of dark stock, and it's really good. You can also thicken it with roux, so you can add that roux in. A lot of people just kind of almost use it for the flavor. I've seen they just sprinkle it a little bit, and, you know, so they don't put enough in that, you know, that would really thicken it too much or whatever. But yeah, you can do various things with it. So yeah.
So what are some other variations on gumbo that you like to make besides just the chicken sausage and the chicken andouille sausage and the chicken?
So you can. So there's a thing that they call tasso, which is like a highly seasoned smoked pork. Usually andouille is not smoked, but you know you can get smoked sausage, or there's this tasso stuff, which is just like pieces of pork that they just smoke the heck out of it. It's a cured thing. Those are great in gumbo. You can. I mentioned another one. So we do some with game. My brother-in-law, Heather's brother Tony, hunts, and we're the recipient of all kinds of like ducks and
geese and all kinds of
elk. Yeah.
Whatever happens to dragon.
Yeah. So any fowl at all is like good in a gumbo. You just we usually go a little darker on the flavor. That fennel is great in a game gumbo. That was like where I started using it actually. So yeah. So I think we're gonna start to put. I think we're gonna add the. Let's see how we're doing here.
It's starting to cook down a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we'll go. I don't know. Maybe people will let us go 5 minutes over, and it won't be too much of a thing.
Someone's asking if you can find filet in Seattle. Yeah, just like grocery store. I also had that question at first because it seems like a very like Louisiana thing. But yeah, probably your spice aisle. If not there, you can check the international aisle if your grocery store has one.
I was gonna say we got the hookup if you don't.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. that brand is often sold in like random, just every standard grocery stores in Seattle. And almost certainly Central Market, if you can't, would have it. Because they have all kinds of odd oddities.
So this is interesting. Peter says he puts the filet on the rice at the end and then pours the gumbo on top of that.
I also
Yeah.
have been known
Yeah.
to do that. Yeah, it kind of ends up with the same result, but that one's probably easier.
All right, we're gonna tantalize everybody with our bread.
Yeah, we made really cool bread, which you guys can't have. We're gonna go ahead and take it away.
Well, the bread's not required. We can do a thing about bread at some point if people want.
Yeah.
All right.
We can like fruit
So
it a little.
one of the things, like I usually crank the heat to high after I put the veggies in, and here it ended up being low, and I was like, I don't know, I kind of just didn't process I usually just get bored and want to just jam the shit and go. So, we should have done that here because that's why we're running a little bit behind my precision schedule.
Yes.
Let's see. Let's talk a little bit more about a couple other things. So the stock, we just say bones all the time. Chicken mostly, but even pork. If you have ribs or something, those are excellent for bones.
Lamb
and just in
bones.
different bags. And then we'll just every once in a while make a big thing of stock, let it go all day, until it's nice and reduced and awesome, and then have the weirdest compost bag ever, and then just freeze it, and then we'll or put it into little containers of the size and then freeze it. And so this is
And it
I think our
lasts a
second
while.
to last batch that we've got left. But yeah, we took all the bones from the turducken, some of the stuff that we boned out, and even maybe a couple of pieces that were from after. Anyway, and we did a big stock out of that.
And tell them what a turducken is, just, because there's all kind of people on here.
Oh right, yeah. So
It's horrific is what it is.
it's
Be proud of your heritage there, son.
Okay, so it's you take a chicken and you stuff it.
Debone
usually.
it.
Yeah, you debone it, you stuff it. Then you put that in a duck,
which you have deboned,
which
and
you've
lined with
deboned
stuffing.
and stuffed, and then you put that contraption into a turkey that you've deboned and stuffed, and then grill it and chop off slices of that. And let me tell you, it's delicious and also horrific. I love it so much.
John Madden used this light pen to talk about it and such.
Yeah, it's it's tactically required.
If you don't have some awesome stock, you can just get bone-in chicken, like I said, and chuck the chicken in there. It will make its sort of own stock as it goes. Particularly if you take all the, if you get a whole chicken and just kind of part it and, because it's got all the back and all those other pieces that are just more bones kind of going in there. So, so you can do that, and that's a completely valid way to do it. If it ends up being a little light, you can always throw a little tiny bit of better than bouillon or something in just to deepen the flavor a little. For seasonings, you can use a Tony's or something, one of these mixes.
Which
but
we use.
the flavor set I usually throw in is a little bit of garlic, a little bit of paprika, a little bit of oregano, some cayenne pepper, and usually thyme. And so we've got some thyme from our garden from a little ways ago, so it's drying a little. And then at the end, we'll just hit it with some. The end.
Do we want to show the people what it looks like? Because I think it's got a.
Oh yeah, that's a yeah. So that's
It's a lot more.
yeah. So this is clarified pretty good. Do y'all see the difference there? Hopefully you can hear. Maybe this will help.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you can see it's starting to look sort of. I mean, they don't get completely clear, but they definitely are looking more translucent. Than they
The
were.
onions and the celery, yeah.
Yeah, and then
particular.
and they soften up too. You can see the pieces that were, So yeah, we're gonna call that good.
So Jay says fresh versus dry garlic? Question mark?
I use dried. We could do fresh. If we were doing fresh, we'd add it in there probably right now and let it, kind of thoroughly, cook so it's not raw anymore. Just you don't want to put it in earlier and have it burn because garlic's a little more gentle than those other things.
But there's a lot of food people who say that it makes you superior to use fresh garlic. It doesn't. You just have money.
So this was our stock. I had to simmer it to get it to thaw it because it was just in a giant block because we didn't do that cool thing with the containers. So I'm gonna ask them. So for the amount of stuff we were talking about, right? 1.5, 3/4 cup of flour. That's for about 1.5 quarts of stock, so about 6 cups. So I've got, a long time ago I found a ladle that was like a cup, and you know, I like that because it helps me do this. So we're going to put in 6 cups of stock with minimal spilling.
Take it easy with that ladle.
So you can, at this point, like use a cool thing to like whisk around, and you know, this is, you know, you can use a whisk or even like this is literally a Roux whisk. You can also, if you just have your, you know, your thing that you've got. Okay, that's 3. So y'all help me remember.
3.
We just want to kind of, we just want to stir it a good bit. We've already got it. Usually, if you're incorporating Roux like straight into stock, where it's just Roux, it helps to have a whisk or something because it's easy for it to clump up, but this is not clumped because it had all that, you know, onions and craziness thrown in there. So we're going to get our heat back to high, so that was 3. We're going to add 2 more cups, or 3 more cups, sorry.
If you don't have like an exact 1 little cup, you could just pour it into like a Pyrex. So make sure, roll it. Just make sure it's like not cold beforehand, because sudden temperature differences in a Pyrex can actually shatter the glass.
Yeah, that's true. And that's another thing that helps it not clump is if you don't have cold stock that you're adding into the Roux.
Yes.
Because it will like, yeah, it'll get all kind of fussy.
It'll splash, and that's not fun for anyone involved.
Yes. Well, or it'll like, yeah, boil up or the like.
Makes it less fun.
Yeah. So again, it's more of a worry if you're using Roux to thicken something, you know. And we cooled the Roux a ton when we added all the veg, but if you haven't done that and you're adding it into like a soup or something, you got to be careful because it'll boil up. So yeah, you want to come. So now you want to come look. Yeah, so you can see it's so our stock was pretty thin, but already it's got some nice body. Roux, even like cooked Roux, still has a starchy taste, and the way to get the starchy taste gone is to simmer it in water for, you know, 30-ish minutes or so, or less, you know, probably by the 5 or so, 5-10, you're done with the starch flavor. Yeah, this is our stock. So our stock was pretty thin. You know, I mean, it's got good body, but it's not like a sauce or anything. I love that stuff.
It's not as thick as a sausage.
So I'll keep this on high until it starts to get to a good simmer, and then I'm going to drop it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this go maybe 10 minutes or so, 10-15 minutes until everything kind of comes together. This is often where I put like the first round of seasoning. And so this is one of those, like, you know, it really depends kind of on how much you're making and your taste and everything else. But like half a teaspoon to a teaspoon of the different things that you're going to put in there is, you know, is probably decent for like the first hit at it, and that'll probably be good, you know. And you can kind of get a feel for, you know, how much you like and how much you want to use and everything else. Or like I said, you can always just look and find one of the, you know, the like Tony Chachery's or other seasoning blends. That one that we used, I don't know, whatever, a couple weeks ago when we did
for the shrimp and cabbage.
Yeah. When we did our Cajun bubble and squeak, you know, borrow from Elizabeth's. We used that Ragin' Red, so that was pretty good stuff. So while this is going, we'll end up throwing some rice in a pot and whatever else, and you know, and get that going. And then by the time, so this is, like I said, I let this go maybe 10 minutes, and then I would add, actually I can add the sausage in now, because the sausage, the longer the sausage, you know, simmers, the better, because all those flavors just come out of there. I'll add the seasonings in, and yeah, maybe 10 minutes to kind of let that start coming together. Then throw the chicken in. You know, if it were like a whole chicken and whatever, you could let it go an hour. You know, that could be 10 minutes and it's done. You know, so it kind of depends on how you like the texture of the chicken. If you like it more stewed and falling apart, you can let it go longer. I usually, you know, like the pieces to be still vaguely recognizable as chicken. So, you know, but like once you get to this point, it's maybe half an hour simmer and that's it. So then you can, like I said, put some rice on and get stuff going. And then the very last thing we do is we would just throw a little bit of green onion. We got our chives are going crazy out there, so so we chopped a few of them up, and that'll go on too.
So Jay wants to know, do you ever pre-fry the sausage or the chicken?
I usually do not. If I were, let's see, gumbo gets a lot of its flavor like from the roux, and so I usually don't feel the need to brown the chicken or whatever else, because I've kind of got a lot of the flavors from other places. But if maybe, let's say you didn't have like a really good stock, right, with a bunch of flavors there, that might be a good excuse to like quickly throw it on the broiler for a bit, even to brown that kind of stuff. So depending on your bones, sometimes people roast the bones before they put them in the stock anyway. So but that would be a good thing to do.
There's a little fat skin forming on top of it.
Yeah, that's fine. We can knock it down a scooch now, but it's yeah. Once we hit a simmer, we just kind of let it do. I mean, both parents pretty much all the way up. Like it's either Acadian or French. There's a little bit of English here and there, but family don't talk about it that much. And so, as an authoritative source on gumbo, I can say that there's not an authoritative source on gumbo, right? Like if you think about what the Acadians did, they got kicked out of any decent place to live all the way down, the colonies, and ended up in Louisiana, and they, figured out ways to cook things with the stuff that was there. So, there's nothing.
They just found stuff and put it in a pot.
Well, there's nothing more Cajun than like taking the stuff that that you've got near, that you've got access to, and and figuring out how to incorporate that into your thing. So if you want to add fennel because hey, they have it and it's good and whatever, then that's right. There's not a bunch of wrongs in gumbo. I would have said at one point like man, having beef is weird in gumbo, but I've had some decent gumbo with, that had beef in it. So
Well, and you didn't talk much about making a seafood gumbo. I remember
yeah, we were talking about it. Yeah.
Seafood is very good for gumbo. Shrimp, oysters, clams, kind of whatever's around.
Crab.
Yes. Yeah. In fact, we've done. I've done like a Caribbean-ish style one, even with like some like of the sort of shellfishy things from there. I think there were like conch or something in it, and and like Scotch bonnet peppers for the heat, and and a bunch of like banana peppers and things and other stuff. And a little bit of like their clovey, jerky sort of, flavor set that they bring.
I've seen someone do an Indian-inspired gumbo.
But it was pretty damn good on rice.
I researched when Sebastian was vegetarian. I did some research at one point and came across a vegetarian gumbo, and they still have not let me make it, but I thought it sounded good.
We should do it.
It had okra and some other veggies, and then they used pecans as kind of like the
kind of meaty.
Yeah, I thought it sounded pretty tasty.
They call it nut meat for
But yeah, it's not quite what we're used to. So
I'd be happy to make it. I like okra in gumbo, at least. I have not had okra outside of it in gumbo.
Well, we're coming up on 40 minutes here, so
I was gonna say, we knew that we weren't gonna finish. If you want, I can show you kind of what it looks like right now, and I think we'll probably dump
kind of
the
wrap it
chicken
up.
in.
So yeah, I was just gonna say, if anybody has any other questions, now's the time to ask them, and then we can wrap it up. And you've got some other experts on the message thread here, the comment thread too. So
someone's asking, will we post a recipe?
Yes, I will
post
post a recipe. I will post this recipe. Like I said, gumbo is, there's a zillion ways to do it and all kinds of different things to incorporate, but
Our word is not law.
The goal was to be able to share, like, here's a way that I do this one, and, and hopefully, like you said, it wasn't a ton of ingredients, and the spices aren't even super hard to, like, throw together, so, all right, so here's this can be the closing thing. It's, like I said, it's got to simmer still some, but but it's gonna simmer nicely.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's looking proper.
So you can see it's got a nice rich body. That will thicken probably still a little bit more even from the flour. Because we got it that nice dark color, it'll be a little thinner than if we had left it a little more blonde. But you know, whatever. That's gumbo's. You can make it like gravy consistency, and or you can make it thinner. It's kind of again up to what people like.
Someone said thank you for doing this. Thanks for showing up and watching us do this, because this is that's cool. You didn't have to. We're kind of just cooking and making jokes, so cool you showed up.
All right.
Yeah.
It looks like
more questions or no? Or
it looks like people are kind of ready to wrap up. We got thank you, looks delicious, nice. Jay's gonna try to make this week.
Please
awesome
do.
tips.
It's very good. Also, it's really good sick food.
There's a request to do the seafood gumbo sometime, maybe. So it might be next fall. We're getting into the nice weather here, and it's not quite as comfort food when the weather's hot.
But we got a whole season of Dungeness crab shells to save.
Yes,
so.
yes, we do.
Board of Representatives,
All right. Well, y'all stay safe out there. Thanks for joining us.
Yes. Yeah. Cheers, all. Thanks.